Okay, so we're going to be taking some notes on argumentative essays because we've been talking about pros and cons, which eventually leads up to what is your claim, and what evidence do you have to either convince people, persuade people to accept or consider what you are claiming. And then eventually that will lead to us writing an essay, really just a formed paragraph um, about an argument or your claim. So we want to talk a little bit about argumentative today. We're not going to go too deep into the essay, but you have some fill in the blank notes. You are going to type in whatever is highlighted on my presentation into your notes, and then you'll turn that in. So let's do this. What is an argumentative essay? So the purpose of an argumentative essay is to convince the reader or I'm sorry, convince the reader to accept or seriously consider your opinion. Um, Argumentative essays have three main parts. That's going to be claim, evidence, and reasoning. And these may sound familiar because they're also used in science, and they're called CERs, where you have to make a claim, use evidence to prove it, and then you have to explain why your evidence makes sense. And we also use them in ELA. But for this particular class, we are only going to be focusing on claim and evidence. So when you are making a claim, you want to first consider your audience. And you want to ask yourself these questions. Who are you trying to reach? And what do they already know about the topic? I'm not going to make a claim about um, video games to an elderly person because they don't really know much about the topic. They're not really interested in the topic. So you want to make sure that you're looking at who you're trying to reach, if they're really going to care about it, and what do they already know about your topic. Then you'll make your claim. So a claim is what the author or you wants to or wants the reader to know, believe, or do. So if I am claiming that strawberry ice cream is the best ice cream in the world, it's something that I want you to believe also, and that will be my claim. It's also your basic belief or position on an issue. So if I said, should school uniforms be allowed? Or in this case, we this week we've been talking about should zoos exist. So that would be your position or your belief on that issue, whether you think they should exist or whether you don't think they should exist. And whatever you choose would be your claim. And then when you make that claim, you have to support it with evidence. So that could be a quote, facts, data. We also talked about the emotional part of it. We've talked about using an expert, but any of those types of evidence that we've talked about can be used to support your claim. And speaking of evidence, this is how the author proves what he or she wants you to know, believe, or do. So in order to back your claim, you have to have evidence. Without that evidence, am I going to believe you? No, because you have nothing to prove what you're saying is true. So when you're looking at your evidence, you need to ask yourself, does my evidence support my claim? And can I prove that my claim is true? If I am claiming that zoos should exist, my evidence should support that. It shouldn't be evidence on all the negative things about zoos or the cons. It should be things that support my claim that zoos should exist and why they are good and helpful. And in the videos we looked at earlier this week, it really did a great job about showing some of the positive and some of the negative things about why zoos should exist. And that's a perfect example of using evidence to support whatever your claim may be. So, at this point in time, pause this video and then take a look at this example. There's some questions in there where it will have you, you'll listen to both sides of the story and you're going to figure out what one team is claiming and then what their evidence is and see if you can figure it out. And then at the end of the video, it will give you the answer. When you're done, come back to this video and press play so we can continue. Okay, so now we're going to look at finding claim and evidence in a passage. We're also going to look at finding the hook and the conclusion. And if you remember from the beginning of the year, the hook is what really brings your audience in. What are you going to say to make your audience zone in on what you're trying to convince them of or to listen to you. And then your conclusion is how you wrap that paragraph or that essay up. So I'm sorry, in this particular case, each one is going to be color coded. So we're going to read the paragraph and then we're going to go through the paragraph and highlight in those different colors. If you're not sure how to highlight on the computer, I will show you. You will just, whatever you're specifically highlighting, you will drag the cursor over like this. And then there's this little highlighting tool right here at the top. You'll click it and then say it needs to be yellow. You'll click yellow and it'll highlight it that color. I'm going to take my highlight off because I don't need to highlight that, but that's how you'll do it when you get to the activity. So first, I need you to take a stance. Should cell phones be allowed in school? So you'll take this telephone in the middle, and you're going to either drag it to yes, or you'll drag it to no, depending on what you think. After you've chosen that, you're gonna go through the passage. So let's read it together. All cell phones must stay in lockers until 3:15 each day. This is the rule my school has about cell phones, but this rule is antiquated. Students should be allowed to use their cell phones in class because it can be learning tools. For example, students can use cell phones for research and games to help them learn, whereas some people may claim cell phones would distract students because of social media like TikTok and Instagram. However, they can be more helpful than harmful in helping students learn because students can stay current with news, making them more informed citizens. Therefore, students should definitely be allowed to carry cell phones to class to become A+ students. I want to pause for a moment just to go over a word that's in there, and it's antiquated. It's a big fancy word and a way of just saying old-fashioned. So they're saying the rule about that their school has about cell phones is old-fashioned. All right, so we've read our paragraph. So now let's see if we can identify the hook. What brings us in and makes us want to read more? So I'll give you a couple seconds to think about that. So our hook is actually our first sentence in this case. And it's all cell phones must stay in lockers until 3:15 each day. And it's a quote. And they're using this quote, and it must be a quote that maybe someone on campus has that states this to them, but it's what draws you in and makes you want to read more about this topic. So now let's try to figure out what the claim is. What is the author trying to claim or convince us to believe? Think about it for a second. If you guessed students should be allowed to use their cell phones in class because it can be learning tools, that is absolutely correct. So in this particular case, the author is claiming that students should be allowed to use their cell phones in class. So based on that, there needs to be some evidence. And in this paragraph, there's some evidence that proves or supports the claim that students should be allowed to use cell phones in class. So let's see what that evidence is. For example, students can use their phones for research and games to help them learn. So their claim is students should be allowed to use cell phones in class because it can be learning tools. And the evidence to support that claim is students can use phones for research and games to help them learn. And now that we've looked at the hook, claim, and evidence, now let's look at how they wrap up this paragraph in the conclusion. And it's our last sentence in this case, and it says, therefore, students should definitely be allowed to carry cell phones to class to become A+ students. If you notice, in this last sentence, it's very similar to what their claim is. So they are just restating their claim. The two sentences are different, but they're saying the same thing. They want you to know again that, hey, this is what I believe, but they're not saying it in the same way. So when you get ready to write your paragraph, you are going to do the same thing. You're going to restate your claim, but you're going to say it in a different way. And that's how you'll wrap up your paragraph. So at this point, you are going to do one on your own. So yours is, should schools require school uniforms? Your highlighting key is right here on slide 19. If you need to look at the example, it is still in the slides. But you are going to take this paragraph and you're going to go through and highlight which one you think is the hook, which sentence you think is a hook, the claim, the evidence, and the conclusion. There will be an audio button on here that you can listen to hear this passage out loud. So you'll click that audio button to listen to it, and then you will go through and you will highlight each of these that aligns with the hook, claim, evidence, and conclusion. And then you will submit that. If you are in class doing this, we're going to go over the answers together. If you're not in class, after you submit it, I will send you a copy of the correct answers. If you have any questions, feel free to send me a message on Schoology or an email on Gmail. Have a good day.